Alrighty, good afternoon, YouTube. Hajim Zero here, back with another quick movie review. For me, it's a good chunk of time since the last time I did one of these, or at least it feels like it. Went a trip to Cuba, working, yada yada yada. But anyway, this one's one of my favorites. Of course, is Quentin Tarantino. I'm gonna at least do a five of his movies, and of course, talk about him a little bit in the film itself. This one is the 1992 classic and independent film, even though a lot of people do know about it. Some people say independent, some people say cult classic, or both. But this was the movie that really officially put Tarantino in the Hollywood's uh, path or door. Now I will say this because I found out this about the movie. And I don't know how to really say this. It's not, you could say it's a ripoff or a remake, but it's technically uh the Hong Kong film that Chow Yun Fat had starred in back in like the late 80s. And again, I'm going to tell of what Reservoir Dogs is really about, but this movie has came out before. A lot of people thought it was original. Technically it isn't. Pulp Fiction was more of his original film, and one of his best ones, today. If when you think of Tarantino, mostly all of his fans are going to say Pulp Fiction. Yeah, next might be Reservoir Dogs and Jackie Brown. Those are like his three core essential films that is identified with him. Now, personally, I haven't seen the Hong Kong crime thriller film that this is based off of with Chow Yun Fat in it. Of course, it has its Cantonese or Mandarin, title, and it's a different translation to what it is in English. But this movie is pretty much about. I think it's like eight guys are doing a heist. Two of them are pretty much planning, and then I think the rest of the six are actually doing the crime. My numbers could be off, but it's pretty much a classic, heist film, heist gone wrong. And I will say this, the brilliant thing about this movie, and I don't know if this was an original, you never see the heist. You just see it, the movie's really played up on the aftermath. There's a Judas in their midst, and they have to figure out who did it. Now, if you guys haven't seen the movie, I'm not going to spoil it for you, because even when I first saw it, I didn't look up the spoiler for it. Usually for some movies I do, depending if I'm that curious or that bored. Like, we're going to go see Ma tomorrow, and I'm still contemplating if I'm going to even remember to look up, or look at, the whole plot and spoil the movie for myself. I did it for Endgame. But, this was the first movie that I really, one of the ones I could think of where I didn't spoil myself, and the funny thing is that this film, it really plays on the suspense very, very well. Is a very good guessing game if you've never seen it before. I know my grandfather would have loved this movie. I know a lot of older people would have liked this movie. And it's a lot of good social commentary on, how different that these guys are. These are mobsters in California. And what I liked about what Tarantino said behind the scenes is that they're all really different. It's not the New York Italian, mob dudes. Like I said, first it's in California. All the guys have different backgrounds. They have different philosophies. In the opening scene where they're sitting at the dinner table, which, by the way, I'm going to talk about even more. Not dinner table, but breakfast. Um, I, they were talking about, it was just random. It's like what they were saying, how people talk about the plot. They don't talk about what, well, they talk about everything but the plot. And that's one of the brilliance of Tarantino's writing. He actually writes dialogue or problems or things that you and I face every other day. So, or just curiosities, just on top of that they're all criminals, so it's kind of funny how, you know, um, how intriguing, that really is. But the main thing that really stood out to me in the beginning of it was the whole tipping topic that they had. I think with I think it was Mr. Pink's character, and I say this because this is really just a random interesting fact because my mom and we had got into a debate about it, and she didn't even listen to me all the way. And the good thing is that we went to Cuba and it was a different experience, but she was just joking, saying, how if you go on a date, if the guy doesn't tip, 9 times out of 10, the woman will frown upon it. And I was like, well, you got to think about the multiple variables. And then I told her, you really can't, when you go out of certain countries, if you do tip, it is a sign of disrespect. And then she got on me saying, you can't believe everything you read on the internet. And I was like, well, and good thing is that I didn't go into a full blown debate because, I know this for a fact on the matter that the internet didn't have to tell me. People who went to other countries have told me this. And even some of my Korean friends had told me in detail why it is disrespectful, and it kind of makes sense. And even here in America with the whole tipping system that a lot of people really don't know about, it is really a form of a slave thing. And, personally, I really don't care. A lot of people really don't care. They look at it as free money, but I do know the history of the tipping, and it is of a slave connotation. Again, you could look that up for yourself, and we can talk about it in the comments. But Mr. Pink, he had a very good compelling argument, is that you really don't tip everywhere you go. It's just a common courtesy or manners. And to be honest, some of that is really bullshit. Yeah, because when he said that, you go to McDonald's and you don't feel the need, to tip them. And then my mom was saying about the whole minimum wage and everything, but I was like, it's the same thing if people working in fast food. It's just that who's working more hours and this, that, and the other. And then they even at Waffle House, it was the same thing. Like one of them I kind of stopped going to because I was frequenting, and then they would cock an attitude if you would not tip them. And even when I was working at Waffle House, you're really not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to give off a vibe that, I'm mad now that you're not giving me this extra money, because technically if you do that, the customer's going to know they're not going to come back ever again. So hence is with me. Now, I might go back to see one of my old coworkers, but it's just funny with the human psychology that Tarantino writes, and even with the characters, it makes sense. And again, I have good respect for my mom, and I will say she is smarter than me and all that. But if I told her this, and because of what someone else had told me, and multiple people had told me, and, about different customs in different countries, I'm actually going to laugh if we do go like to Korea or one of the Asian countries and you tip and then they take the shit and throw it at you because I told you this, you didn't listen, X, Y, and Z. Now you mad that this person had did this and you want to fight them now. But, it was just very, very good, interesting. I think it was about 5 minutes of dialogue of them going back and forth. I think Lawrence Tierney, that played the boss named Joe, they were getting into a debate about it. And another funny thing, when I going back to the whole Judas and the Mist, technically it's a cop that's an undercover cop that's in the group, and what they say is that the cop actually reveals himself in that scene. He snitches on dude who doesn't tip. But pretty much another factual thing about the movie, another actor that's on here, he also passed away. It was him and Lawrence Tierney, and of course Sean Penn, but I'm gonna talk about him a little bit later. But those are the three main actors, good actors in the film that stand out in Hollywood, and they had passed away. Actually, this 10-year anniversary, when it came out in 2002, they gave a tribute to Lawrence Tierney because he had died that year. And then later, Ed Bunker had died, who played Mr. Blue. And he had a juvenile criminal past a little bit. And he was stating that the movie was really good. It was good for Hollywood, cinematography and the story and all that. But he said that the biggest thing is that what him and some of the other gangsters really don't like, when they do these movies, that they love the exaggeration, but 9 times out of 10, certain scenarios won't play out this way because you can get caught by the police. And the biggest one was them having the meal before doing the crime, and or having breakfast. Number one, yeah, you wouldn't do that. It just seems kind of dumb, especially if you're spotted and then you go and do this crime, and then someone can say, oh, they were right here in this restaurant a couple hours ago before doing this. I can ID them, and I still have the receipt, and I have other evidence. And you see now, if they would have did it the day before and then they left and went home, that would have been understandable. But I remember I was watching Just Kidding News, and how they were talking about movies at one point and how the good thing they are getting really, really realistic, because a lot of these directors, they're either talking to, criminal psychologists, former criminals, sex offenders, you know, uh, people in military personnel. They're trying to get authentic, realistic, history, because a lot of people are catching them on it. And then at the same time, they like to know and tell the truth and put it on film. Of course, there are going to be some changes and variations, because the studio will sometimes get involved. But I can't really think of many Hollywood movies where most of them, everything was 110% correct. If it was based off of something, or if it's a realistic scenario and it plays out. Like, I think I forgot to mention that on the movie Collateral. Yeah, most hitman, not all of them wear, of course, a suit and tie, and then two, they wouldn't ride around in a taxi cab and make that risk. But I think in Collateral, he was playing to kill him anyway, because it was in the dialogue when the two cops were talking earlier after dude had did the first hit, saying that it was just coincidental that he's seen the same formula before, except they found the taxi driver dead. So it just goes to show you that dude was gonna kill him anyway. But uh, what was it? Another unrealistic thing is that Mr. Orange, who was shot during the carjacking, I think he would have died. Him being alive for a little bit, like I say, 10 minutes was realistic, but how he was just laid out and not doing much in the warehouse, technically he would have been dead. He lost too much blood. I mean, even by what they shown in the movie, he would have been gone a long time ago from blood loss, getting shot in the gut like that, and especially with the gun that the person that shot him with. It looked like a revolver or a snub nose. Yeah, most of those guns have a big packing punch versus those basic handguns. But I'm very, very moderate with the gun knowledge. But technically, you getting shot like right there in the lower abdomen, and you losing that kind of blood, you would have been dead like a minute a while ago. But all the actors in this movie had did a very good job. Steve Buscemi, uh, who else? Michael Madsen, Tim Roth, Harvey Keitel, Ed Bunker, Sean Penn. I really loved his acting. It's just a shame that he died also. He died much later. I think in 2004. I want to say he committed suicide. He's the brother of I can't even remember his fucking brother's name, because he's also a known actor. Um, my bad. Sean Penn is still alive. Chris Penn is the one that's in this movie, and he was the one who committed suicide. Yeah. So I was confused him too, but he was a very good actor. I've seen him in a good amount of films. It just blows that he's not around anymore. I think Martin Scorsese would have put him in more of his films, like Departed and all that. But uh, this movie had a very, very good stellar cast. And another fun fact, Samuel Jackson was supposed to be in this movie. He was supposed to play the black guy who was an undercover cop briefing Tim Roth. He had a little bit more scenes in the deleted scenes, how he was telling him that being an undercover cop, you pretty much have to be like Marlon Brando. And it was just a banter going back between him and the other character who's the undercover cop. I probably spoiled it by now of who the cop was without even knowing it, without even saying it. But I'm just saying, with him and the other character, they were going back and forth. And what was it? When he was saying that, it's blindsiding in the warehouse, and you're being dealt this card, and then, he was saying that if you don't want the job, then get the hell off the case. And he's like, I wouldn't say I wouldn't do it. I'm just telling you the scenario. I might get killed, and you should give me some more fucking protection. And even that goes into the story, because there were other cops actually around the corner. It was explained in the ending of when everybody is dead, and then he's still trying to save Mr. Orange, and you got to see the ending. But what was another thing I was gonna point out? When you include the deleted scenes, a lot of stuff makes sense. I think Tarantino took it out because, of course, they wanted to move on to the next scene and felt like it dragged too long. And definitely with his independent film, he definitely could have done it. It gave a little bit more layers, to the characters in the movies, and I mean into the movie itself. And the funny thing is that what one of the it was the social not social the audio commentary. um Spike Lee had criticized this movie. Well, actually, he criticized a lot of uh what Tarantino's films. It was the ones I could think of. It was this one, Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, and Django Unchained. And I'm gonna talk about him a little bit more and go into deep, why he's mad and how I see Spike's uh, perspective. But at the same time, he really can't say anything either because he's done some questionable things with his movies. So pretty much, he criticized him for saying the word nigga a lot, and of course, Nigga, and then you have Nigger, nigga, nigger. And the funny thing is that if you look at Tarantino's movies, when he does, and this is how you know he's been around a lot of black people. Yeah, when he writes his white characters, he gives them the ER. When it's the black characters, he does say the GGA. Personally, I really don't hate the dude for doing that. And to be honest, that was first Spike's criticism. I haven't heard that many people other than Spike criticize Quentin for doing that. But at the same time, depending on the movie and the context, that's how he really gets a slide, because it's kind of like that in hip hop music. It's one thing if he's saying it, but have a reason to say it. If it's like in the west end of Atlanta where I'm hearing it like 30 or 40 times, in a sentence like dude said on the Boondocks, it's a bunch of bullshit. Yeah, you just saying it to say it, and at that point, I will tell that person, if you say that to a white person, don't be mad if they say the same shit right back to you, because if you've been saying it, if you said at least 40 times a day, and then somebody else of different race says it, it just goes to show you that everybody needs to stop saying it if you getting offended because a white boy has said it. Yeah. And then even I get into these debates on Facebook about how they say how white people should stop saying it, and I always tell them, then it goes back to you originally not saying it either. I throw out that whole thing where they say just because they're not black they can't say it. I mean, y'all been saying it on each other, and then y'all want to say it's an empowering word that's ours, and you get mad when a white person or a Latino or Asian might say it. I mean, it is what it is. And then I was even saying that, so will you be pissed if you have to go in court and have to repeat something that, someone in the case or the defendant has said? You're going to get all hyped up and emotional that the prosecutor or the judge might say it in a repeating rebuttal. So, even when my mom and we were watching that Kevin Costner movie where he was getting the custody of his daughter, and it was with the black family, and he had said street nigger in it. And even I was saying at that one point, you really shouldn't have said that because, again, it was used against them in court. But, even my mom was saying in the moment of him talking to the black man and not doing his responsibility, even she couldn't get mad because it was kind of true. You're living up to that stereotype, and it just leaves a bad taste in people's mouths. But with the dialogue, he makes it seem real. And then even with Reservoir Dogs, if you really analyze it, all of these, there are really no minorities and there are no women in this film. But the funny twist of it, that all these white dudes, they end up killing themselves. And this is what the lady on the audio commentary track was saying. And if a feminist watch this, I hope she analyzes and sees that same thing too. And that was a whole twist on the whole thing. They all kill each other over greed and paranoia of who's a cop or not. And even in this thumbnail scene right here, it plays up heightenedly in that scene. All three of these dudes shoot each other. This guy over here, Harvey Keitel, he's protecting, dude on the floor who they suspect is a cop. And it just plays out, in that whole way, even though despite of all the racist and homophobic and misogynistic stuff that they say, the funny thing in the whole movie, they're not killed by women, they're not killed by black dudes or Latinos or Asians. They're getting killed by each other. And that was just a really interesting analysis. The funny thing, the movie ends somewhat on a sour note. In a way, I will spoil this. Mr. Pink does get away with the diamonds. You know, right after they all shoot each other, because he was the one trying to calm everybody down. And right after they do end up shooting each other, he does walk out. So it was kind of funny how I had caught on to that. Now I was like, okay, at least, you know, throughout everybody in that whole job, at least one person had got away. You know, the characters in there, Quentin Tarantino's in his in the story as well. He plays Mr. Brown and Mr. Blue. Mr. Brown dies, and Blue, they don't say what happened to him, but I'm assuming he could have got arrested, but everybody else ends up getting killed pretty much. Yeah, so Mr. Pink is the only one that really gets away. Yeah, even Joe and his son, you know, they end up getting killed. And the funny thing is that the one thing that, you know, realistically and criminally that does make sense with the film is that them wearing all black suits, that part did make sense. You know, you do a robbery, you can't identify the guy. A 5'9" Caucasian dude in a black suit. Well, it was six of those guys in that group, and then more of them probably around in LA. So I would say stylistically and logically that did make sense, you know. So that's pretty much my review. Again, we can talk about it in the comment section. I love the good thing after going on the cruise, I got a little bit more, got like 2 more followers who are in the film. So hopefully they see this when I upload it, and you know, we can have a nice little, you know, back and forth. Hopefully they seen some more videos, but you know, we'll see. But I will check you guys in the next review, which I'm gonna do possibly right now, hopefully. Peace.